Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. My name is Lauren. I am the Continuing Education Coordinator here at Alzheimer's Orange County, and I will be your host today. Thank you for joining us for today's topic on gun safety and dementia. We often speak of safety in the context of driving, accessing stoves, or leaving medication unattended. However, it is estimated that nearly half of people over the age of 65 either own a gun or live with someone who does. And as our population is getting older and the number of people with dementia is soaring, it is becoming more common for someone with dementia to have a gun in their home. Today, our presenter is Jeff McCabe, owner of California Gun Services. Before we begin, just a few reminders. Your mic and video are automatically disabled and will remain so throughout this presentation. Any questions you have for the presenter, please type into the chat box located in the taskbar. We will save your questions and answer them at the conclusion of the webinar. Lastly, we ask that you please complete the survey at the end of the webinar, as it helps us to continuously improve our webinars and let us know what you would like to learn about in the future. So with all that said, I would like to introduce our speaker today, Jeff McCabe.
Hi, thank you everybody for logging in and joining us today. And thank you, Lauren, for inviting me to speak. Little background, I'm gonna real quick go over who I am, what my company is, our goals and motivation for doing this. And then we're just gonna do a quick overview of gun safety, gun storage, cognitive decline, and then some legal stuff. And then I would love to answer questions. So like Lauren said, you can type it in or you can save your questions for the end. And the last slide, there's going to be contact information. So if you needed a private or a one-on-one conversation, I'm happy to answer questions after the webinar as well. So first off, I'm a licensed FFL, and you're going to hear that term several times as I talk. That basically stands for Federal Firearms Licensee, meaning that the ATF has come to my home, to my place of business. I've had background checks. The California Department of Justice has authorized us to do this, and my local PD, which is the City of Orange Police Department. Basically, that means that I am licensed to sell, buy, transfer, remove firearms, ammunition, all of that kind of stuff. As far as the legal points here, I do my best to try to learn what California law is and the federal law, and then give you my opinion. I am not an attorney, so I can't give legal advice in that form, but I'm going to tell you how I interpret the law, and any question you guys have on that, I'd love to answer it. I've been doing this since 2016 is when I got my license. The license took me about 2 years to get. And over the last 7-8 years, this company and the need for this has just boomed to the point now we're a family operated company. My wife, Jennifer, runs our office, and my brother, John, who's a licensed safety instructor and also licensed through us, helps to remove and service gun needs in Southern California. So real quick backstory on how this got started is I'm a painter by trade. I own a family painting company based out of Orange County. I inherited it from my father. And about 20 years ago, we were painting a home in a lady's house. She was a widow from our church. And when we were moving her bed away from the wall, she started getting nervous and said, "Hey, I need to tell you guys something. There's some guns under the bed." My dad being ex-military and me, I grew up hunting and target shooting, no problem. We pulled the bed away, and there was 27 guns under the bed. Her husband had put them under there when he went into the hospital, and unfortunately he never came home. And she described it was a monster under her bed. She didn't know what to do with them. She was scared and she was embarrassed. So my dad and I said, "Hey, let's help." We called a local gun shop. We got them all, unloaded them, drove them down, sold them, brought her a check, and thought we did a good deed and went on our way. Unbeknownst to me, she was part of a widow support group through a church system, and she was a speaker, and she got up and told everybody what we had done for her. And my phone started blowing up, and there was, instance after instance of somebody saying, "Hey, I need your help. Can you help me?" And I saw that there was a need for, somebody out there to provide services to help people. And so we are not a gun shop. We do not sell guns back into the community. We're not a gun shop that you can come in and That's not what we are. We do sell guns, and I'll get into that later on how we can help facilitate that. But that's just a little bit how I started this. So um, uh, I really believe in being just helping people, and I think that we're gonna make a difference. And if we can just save one person, save one life, and then just put people at ease, that's my main goal here. Um, there's a quick bio of background on me that I just moved over. Um, so in terms of cognitive decline, people with Alzheimer's, dementia, they do not mix with firearms. And whether you're a caregiver in someone's home, whether you're a spouse, a son and daughter, and it's your dad, it's a very touchy subject with particularly men. I find that men are emotionally attached to their firearms, and for a lot of reasons. Either it could have been their grandfather's gun, it could have been that they remember taking that old shotgun out with their brother when they were kids, and there's just a lot of reason that guys are very emotional, and it's hard for them to give it up. So my advice is for caregivers, if you're a spouse or a kid, be patient and try to understand that it's hard, and we'll go into a little bit more on having those conversations. um the A lot of times when someone gets older, usually, and I'm just going to keep referring to older gentlemen because by and large that who's owning the firearms, um but a lot of times family intervention is often necessary, um and having those conversations, if that's something we can help with, I've been brought in to help with those conversations. um and navigating that is tricky. The We like to say that being a responsible gun owner, so many people talk about, oh, you lock guns up and being responsible. But part of that responsibility is knowing when you shouldn't have a gun anymore. And sometimes with the cognitive decline, people can't self-regulate. They don't understand when they're a threat to themselves or others. So that's one of the biggest things that I try to address. In ensuring and preventing a tragedy, just by the pure fact, if there is a firearm in a home, the odds and the percentage uh, of either an accidental shooting, self-harm, or legal ramifications. That's something a lot of people don't talk about. Those numbers go up dramatically just by having a firearm in the home. So that's one thing we're going to talk a lot about, is how do we get the guns out? What are some ways we could store guns, and some options on transferring guns. And our company helps with all three of those things. Let's see what I've got next here. So on the also, as far as public safety, in the community, there's basically firearm related accidents. We say, well, how does having a gun in the home affect the community? A lot of times those guns could easily be brought outside. I had a guy that meant no harm, but basically took a gun outside and was walking around, not sure what he was doing. He had no ill intentions. The neighbor saw it. Police came. It was a sticky situation, and that we try to avoid. The other thing is, most crimes committed with firearms, the firearms are stolen. And I've seen over and over, it's probably once a month that I get a call from a caregiver, a son, somebody saying, hey, we're moving my dad into a home. I know he had a handgun in his dresser drawer. I saw it there 2 weeks ago and now it's not there. And, there could have been a handyman in the house, a caregiver came in the house, delivery people or whatever. And the guns just happened to grow legs and walk away. And so I can't tell you how many times where people just say the guns are gone and they don't know where they went. Basically, those guns are now unregistered guns. They're on the streets. They have a way of finding, way into the hands of people that shouldn't have them. And so that's another way where it's, protecting our community, is making sure those guns are accounted for and are put into the hands of, either an FFL or another family member that can, legally take them, that kind of stuff. So we'll move on to the next slide. The three main things that I'm going to talk about, this kind of sums it up. So the firearm risks, the safe storage practices, and legal responsibilities of having a gun in the home. And like I said, those are the three main things that I'd like to talk about. And if we go on to understanding some of the legal liabilities, it is illegal in California to give a gun away. So if a neighbor comes over and says, "Hey, I'll take the guns for you," and you said, "Sure, Bob, yeah, thank you," and he goes and takes the guns and puts them in his safe, that is illegal. It's illegal to throw something in the trash, because trash is sorted, and when it goes to the sorting facility, somebody may find that, and now, they're in possession of an unregistered firearm. A big part of what I do is come in and just try to make sure people know what the legal liabilities are, their options, and help walk them through that. We do that. You've got the state and the federal. There's both things going on there. And part of using our services is we help shield you from potential liabilities, legal liabilities. Give me one second here. The most frequent questions I'm asked are legal questions on transferring, inheriting ammunition, and I'm going to talk about ammunition in the home in a second as well. Let me move forward on this one. So back to facilitating difficult conversations and talking with family members, talking with your husband, your spouse, or whoever it is you're caring about. This is something we can provide and come in and help with. I can actually go to people's homes and sit down and talk. I can go through a number of different scenarios on things and options you have. But doing it delicately, discreetly, that's something I try to specialize in and really help people and would go through. So move on to the next slide. I just kind of said these things. We handled it discreetly and respectfully, and acknowledging the emotional significance of getting rid of a gun. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to try to find the legal. Oh, and also removing the guns. It can really put the family at ease. The benefit is for a caregiver, just removing the stress associated with having guns in a house, especially for people who aren't familiar with it. It's another clearly a good reason to get rid of the guns, get them out of the house, or get them locked up. Like I was saying earlier, you can't give a gun away. And even this also goes into a lot of times, someone will put their gun in a will saying, "Hey, when I die, I want my guns to go to my brother Bob in, Oklahoma or something." That has to go through an FFL. So basically an FFL has to take the firearm, transfer it to an FFL in Oklahoma, which then delivers it to the brother Bob. The one exception is a biological children and grandchildren can inherit a father or grandfather's firearms. This can be hugely helpful, this loophole, because a lot of times I reach out to the children to try to help get those guns out legally. They can take possession of it and walk away with it, and that's legal. Now the state of California is going to ask that they report that to the state of California, and I do have a form coming up and some information on how to do that. Now, with that said, in California, what is classified as an assault weapon, a child or a grandchild cannot take a California assault weapon. those have to be either destroyed, turned over to an FFL, or to the local law enforcement. And I know I know an incident where a gentleman had passed away, and his wife, let's say Mrs. Smith, asked the attorney, "Hey, he wanted my grandson to have his guns." And the attorney said, "Yeah, no problem. He can legally inherit them." They took the guns, gave it to his grandson. The grandson and his buddies decided to take these out. They went out in the desert and started shooting beer cans and having a good time, and everything went well. On their way home, they got pulled over. The officer said, "Do you have any weapons in the car?" "Well, yes, we do." He took a look, ran serial numbers. Well, there was an assault weapon that the attorney didn't know, the grandmother didn't know, and the grandson didn't. It got confiscated, and he had to go to court and had, felony assault weapon violations that he's having to fight, and he had no idea. So that's another area where I come in and can quickly identify and say, "Hey, this gun particularly is not legal in the state of California, or this one has to be handled this way." And I have all those resources, whether the ATF needs to come and remove it, or we ship it out of the state. But that's another way where we help comply and see what you got, where it needs to go. Um, so that being said, and uh, it's also who has the authority to get rid of a gun. Um, as a caregiver, if any of you caregivers are logged on, you do not have the authority to remove a handgun or a rifle or a shotgun, put it in your car and drive it away. You're breaking several different laws, and not only, I highly don't recommend handling guns if you don't know them. You don't know if it's loaded. Um, there's very specific laws on how they're transported, who can transport, and if they're loaded or not, if there's ammo present. So I don't recommend that caregivers remove firearms. With that said, if there was a situation where you felt, somebody's life is endangered, somebody saying, talking about suicide, making threats, if you were to somehow just remove it and then call your local law enforcement at that point, and they came and got it from you, and you explain the situation, this is where it is, this is what's going on, you would not get in trouble for it, because you're trying to obviously save someone's life or protect somebody. But that would be an extreme situation, and in that scenario, calling law enforcement's the best thing you could do. And I would say at any point, if um, someone with a firearm or access to a firearm is talking about hurting themselves or somebody else, if you can't get a loved one or a family member to come and remove that gun, like right then, calling a law enforcement is your next option, and they will come and remove the firearm. There obviously is going to be maybe some backlash with the person you're giving care to, or your spouse or something like that, and it can escalate things. But that's definitely an option if you feel someone's life is in danger. And let's move to the next one. Let's talk about gun storage. One of the tactics I use when I come across typically an older gentleman who is not willing to give his guns up is we can talk him into just storing them, getting a safe, getting a lockbox. And the picture here is a cable lock. The next slide I've got is some more locks. And you can get a pretty cheap lockbox on Amazon, probably $40-50. It shows up at your house in 2 days. And then what you do is you either have the key or the combination, give it to, you can give the combination to a neighbor next door, give it to the family member. And basically the guns are still there. They're going to be locked up, but the person that, in question will not have access to them. This is usually a good happy medium when I come in and say, "Hey, tell you what, we're just going to unload the gun. We're going to put it in this box. It's still going to be in your closet, or it's going to be in the garage. It's not going anywhere. but they don't have access to it. So this is a great first uh, tool to securing a gun. Um, and the cable locks are a great way as well, but they do break and they can be cut fairly easy. It's a great, like I said, starting point. And those locks are very inexpensive. If anybody needs some, I think we've got 100 or so in the shop. I would be happy to mail somebody one at no charge. Most gun shops give them away for free. Um, but it is a very easy way to lock the gun up. Now, with that said, if you don't know how to check a gun to make sure that it's unloaded, like the revolver in the picture, you have to be able to open it up, or a semi-automatic handgun or a shotgun. If you don't know how to do that, now you're taking risk of trying to lock the gun up that it's loaded and the gun could go off. So, um, either you find somebody who is familiar with guns that can then check it and do that if you're unfamiliar. Um, it's not as good as getting the guns out of the house, but it's a great first stepping stone. The two pictures I've got here, the one on the left is a cable lock, like I just said. The one on the right is a trigger lock, and it just covers up the trigger. It's with a key, and this is another great way. And sometimes we'll do a cable lock inside of a locked box or a locked, closet, something like that, and doubling up on them. Once again, the trigger lock is great, but if you don't know if that gun is loaded or not, you're putting this device right against the trigger. If the gun was loaded, it could potentially go off while you're putting the lock on. And so please be, safe if you choose to get a lock and do it yourself. Once again, if you have any questions on it, I'd love to walk you through it. And if you want me, I could schedule a time and come out and bring locks and make sure all the locks are, guns are locked and then in a container. I'd be happy to do that for you. Another California law. This is not a federal law, but California is very. This one right here. There's a misdemeanor and a federal level violation of leaving a gun or having a gun accessible to a child. Every warning when you buy a gun has child safety laws. I personally know of people who've had to come and get rid of their guns because they had a son or a daughter that got access to a gun without being malicious, but it got reported and they got arrested and they went to court. And it was a horrible thing to watch this family go through this. But the California law basically states anytime a child is present in a home, anybody under the age of 18, the guns have to be locked up. They cannot have access to them. So even a cable lock or a trigger lock, if they still have access to that firearm, you're breaking the law. And that means that, you watch your grandkids for the weekend, they come over for Christmas, a neighbor comes over with their grandkids. So whenever, if you ever have children present, this is just, aside from having Alzheimer's or dementia or struggling with that, just being a responsible gun owner. And a lot of the older generation who bought their guns in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they're unaware of all these laws. And I've known more than one person who's gotten in trouble and just had no clue that this law is now into effect. So it's another reason why to lock the guns up or remove them from the home. Okay, moving forward. Ammunition. California, it has, as far as I know, the only state that has the most strict ammunition laws now, that have just gone into effect, and I believe it was 2020, where it is now illegal to give away ammunition. So an old box of 22s that have been in the garage and you want to give it to your neighbor, you can't do it. In order to buy ammunition now, it is like buying a gun. You have to have a background check done on you. So you go into a gun shop, they run your name through a system, you pay a fee for that before they give you ammunition. If you are a prohibited person in the state of California, you can't be in possession of it. And that's one of the reasons these laws went. It's keeping people who shouldn't have guns from being able to buy ammunition. Um, but that means if there's old boxes, you're going to get it, out of the house. Um, as an FFL, I legally come and I can remove ammunition. I don't charge anything for this. And there is times where uh, if there's a significant amount of ammunition, I can even pay for it at points. You can take it down to gun shops and give it to gun shops. Um, some law enforcement agencies will come and remove guns and ammunition. Increasingly, they don't. You would be shocked at how many people call me and say, "Hey, I called my local police department and said, hey, there's an old gun," and the police say, "No, we will not come remove it." And it's because it's gotten so expensive for the sheriff's department and police departments. They are acquiring, hundreds and thousands of guns and literally thousands and thousands of pounds of ammunition each year, and they don't have a way to get rid of it. And we're actually getting calls from law enforcement agencies asking if we can help dispose of the ammunition and guns. Um, so just be aware that with the ammunition, you need to handle that. Please don't throw it in the trash. Um, Once again, our trash goes to sorting facilities. It goes on conveyor belts. It's going through machinery. And a bullet gets caught in a machinery, and a cog in a gear could go off. It could injure somebody, start fires. So don't throw it away either. And this is one of the resources we offer. And if you've got questions about that, let me know. Um, to digress a second, when we talked about locking the guns up, another good tactic, if somebody doesn't want to give their guns away, or you legally can't get them out of the house, or you don't have the authority, one thing you can do is get rid of the ammunition. And so several times I've had gentlemen who, they'll get rid of 5 of their 6 guns, but that one they just won't get rid of. But what we do is we make sure it's unloaded. We remove all the ammunition out of the house. Now that gun is in the home, but there's no ammunition. So that's another kind of tricky way. And anybody can get rid of ammunition, where you may not legally be able to get rid of somebody's gun because you don't own that gun, but you can surrender ammunition and you don't need any authorization to do that. So that's another really good way of discreetly or but creating another layer of safety there. And then let's talk about inheriting fire guns. When I say an inheritance, I'm not saying about us inheriting, but for whoever is the owner, typically the gentleman, if he wants a gun to be inherited to his son, his daughter, grandchild, best friend, you don't have to wait to pass away to have an inheritance. So what I tell people is do it now. It is so much easier to transfer a firearm when the legal owner, whether it's registered or unregistered. But when the legal owner does it, it's a very simple process. And if it is going to a son or a daughter or grandchild in California, it's very easy. And I can walk you through that. I'm going to show you a form and tell you how to do it. Once somebody has passed away, there's a lot of questions on then who legally has the authority to take possession of that firearm and sell it. And it can get tricky. And there's times where uh, there may not be somebody. There's times we've had to surrender guns or pick up guns because there's nobody that can legally take it. So if you want your guns to go to somebody, and this is also another good tactic on talking to people is, well, what do you want to have with, why don't you want to get rid of this gun? And they may say, it was my dad's old service revolver from World War II. And he gave it to me on my birthday. And they may have this history with it. It means so much to them. That's why they don't want to get rid of it. The next conversation could be then, let's pass this on and put it in your trust, put it in your will, write the history down, sit with that person and you write, where did it come from? And you write down the make model. It was an old Smith and Wesson. This is a serial number. And my dad was sergeant, major in the Army during World War II. And you write the story of the gun, the history of it. It's good and therapeutic for that person. It shows that you're respecting them and understanding why they're emotionally attached. And you can then inherit that gun or, pass it on now. or put it in the trust and the will. And that way, when something does happen, they know that gun is going to go to where they want it and it's going to be preserved. But that's also a really another good way to facilitate those conversations and just really understand, what they're struggling with. But documenting a gun's history also protects the inheritance. If it puts down that, it was my dad's, it's mine, this is a serial number, and I want it to go to my son, that's a lot of uh, power to back up the legal documentation there that's a family gun and it's protected. Um, uh, so yeah, if you're thinking about passing guns on, I say the time is now. Um, the So legal restrictions, ensure guns meet legal requirements. Once again, I talked about assault weapons. Assault weapons cannot be passed on. Um, and these are guns that were legally bought at Big Five or Turner's, what used to be Kmart. So a lot of gentlemen in the 80s and 90s walked in, they bought a legal gun, they came home, put it in their closet, and they've done nothing to the gun. It's been there for 20, 30 years. But what happened is the laws have changed. So that was considered a rifle in 1998, but in 2000, it is now considered an assault weapon. And assault weapons cannot be passed on or inherited. Um, and most of these gentlemen, a lot of them didn't even know the laws changed. They have no idea what they have or the legal ramifications of what they've got. And unfortunately, I deal with it weekly that somebody passes away or gets put in a hospital, assisted living, and they can't, they may not even have the cognitive ability to sign the paperwork to transfer the guns or get rid of them. And now they're leaving that responsibility to their son, their daughter, their wife, somebody else that loves them and is coming in and taking care of all this. And it's a big problem and a nightmare and liability that they're leaving this assault weapon to deal with. And the time to deal with those is now. And I can help uh, with anything. And I'm not law enforcement. I don't get anybody in trouble. Um, if if there's somebody out there listening right now and you've got one, something in your closet, something in a safe that you're going, ooh, I know I got to deal with this. I don't know what to do. You can contact me discreetly. I'm going to have a conversation with you. Once again, I'm just going to give you your options. What you say is safe with me, and I don't need to report anything or, it's up to you what you want to do with those. But I will give you a legal way to get out of the situation you're in with that. Prohibited people who can't own firearms. This can be minors, anybody under the age of 21 now in the state of California. Anybody who's got a felony conviction, anybody who's had a 5150, anybody who's addicted to drugs. Sometimes, schizophrenia, medications that you're on can prohibit you. Anybody who has a restraining order. And this is another reason why we need to go through the legal steps, because if your best intentions are that you want your gun to go to your grandson, but you don't know that your grandson had a felony DUI 5 years ago because he was embarrassed and didn't tell you, and you give him a gun or put it in his possession, you could cause a ton of problems for that person. So part of going through the background of registering the guns that you're getting rid of, if you want them to be inherited, it's protecting your loved ones or protecting your friend, whoever you want those guns to go to. If you do it legally, you're going to make sure that they don't get into trouble. You do just not want to hand a gun over to somebody. It could have major legal liabilities for them. So going through the right chains, you're protecting the ones you love and when you get rid of your guns. This form right here is very important, and it can save a ton of time and make things very easy if somebody is wanting to give their guns to leave the guns to a wife. to a son or daughter, grandson, a grandchild. It is called an intrafamiliar firearm transfer. If you, I can email this to people, but the easiest way to do it is you just go on to California Department of Justice. You type in that form number right there. I'm going to leave this up for a second if anybody needs to take a picture. And basically, you fill it out who the gun is going to. So if a son is going to take the guns out of the house, this is a way that he can register those guns in his name with the state of California. They will transfer the serial number into his name. You can do as many guns as you want at one time, and it costs $19. You mail this into the Department of Justice with a check for $19. And those serial numbers, so the guns, basically the serial number on the guns will be transferred, let's say to the son and out of the husband or grandfather's name. And now the grandfather, grandmother are no longer legally liable for those firearms. The liability has now transferred to whoever it goes to. But this is I use this form all the time, and it's a really good tool. It also protects whoever is taking those guns in the future. If they get pulled over or for some reason, those serial numbers get run, their name's going to show up, and it's going to protect them from the legal liability. So if anybody has questions on this, on how you fill it out, how you mail it, anything, I'd be happy. But this form is really an easy tool to move guns inside of a family. Okay, moving on. One of the things unique about us is that we are a mobile service. And as far as I know, in the state of California, we're the only mobile service that I know of. There may be others, I'm just unaware of them. But what this means is that this is a picture of my van. We come to you. I've got mobile printers, laptops. If we remove a gun from the home, I set up right there in the home, log on to the Department of Justice website, transfer those serial numbers on all the guns into California Gun Services possession. Whoever is releasing the firearms, I need a signature and a copy of their driver's license, but they get a receipt from the Department of Justice showing they're no longer in possession or liable for those guns. And we take care of the transportation part of it. So in the back of this van, I've got several locked compartments that meet transportation laws. So I make sure the guns are unloaded. It's the first thing I do. And if you ever call me, let me come and get the guns. I don't handle them, but the first thing is everything's unloaded. Then we process them. They get locked in the van and transported to our shops. We, come to you to remove ammunition as well. So it says they're guns and ammo. But being able to come to you, especially if you've got somebody that's in not just, a cognitive decline, but maybe also in a physical decline. Maybe they physically can't get in a car and go down to a gun shop, or, they can't physically go do a transfer somewhere. That's another reason why we come to you. I like to say most of our services are free here. If you've got some ammo, you've got guns, and you just want them gone, we don't charge anything. We come and we send an appointment, come and remove it. I do have some increased limitations on time and then logistics. I've gotten calls from Sacramento and San Francisco and San Diego, and there's only two. There's me and my brother, so it's there are some limitations on how quick we can get to you, or if it doesn't make sense to drive to San Francisco to pick up a box of ammunition. I will help walk you through or find a resource or figure it out for you. So I was gonna have a thought about being mobile. There is a new gun law that just came into effect January 1st of this year, having to do with transfer. So if the gentleman was willing to give his guns up and he wants them to go to his neighbor or his best friend Bob, that is called a private party transfer. I used to be able to facilitate that mobily, but I can no longer do that. California law now says it has to be done uh, in the premises where the FFL is held, the license, and it has to be audio recorded and videotaped and stored for a year. And we haven't figured out how to do that mobile yet. So private party transfers, um, uh, that does require that both participants go to a gun shop to do that. Another way to get rid of guns and ammo is to call local law enforcement, like I said, and you can schedule a pickup. Um, Sometimes they will ask that you take it to them, you put it in your trunk, you call them when you get to the police station and have them come out and remove it. Um, every police department and sheriff's department is handling this very different these days. They're not required to take anything. So call them first. Um, Once again, if you sometimes people want to be discreet and they don't want a police car showing up in front of their house and their neighbors going, what's going on? If you notice the van, I have CGS on it, which stands for California Gun Services, but nowhere on the van do we say guns. Nowhere do we promote that we have guns or what we're doing. Um, and so we do try to be discreet. I have the logo on there so that you know when I show up, am who I say I am. But we definitely are very discreet when we remove firearms, ammunition. We try not to let neighbors see what's going on. Um, and we just protect your privacy. So that's another benefit of using our services. Um, Moving on. Um, One thing we can do is we call it a gun and firearm audit. This isn't necessarily pertaining to Alzheimer's, but it does have to do with gun collections. Um, and what a gun audit, this would be more for like a wife if her husband's going to be put into, she wants to sell the collection, or the husband decides, okay, let's sell them. Um, I come in, I can do small collections just over pictures, over email. Um, yeah, on bigger collections, I go inspect the collection. I make a list of make, model, serial number, condition, whether it's working or not. Once again, I make sure everything's unloaded and then stored safely. I can give advice on that when I'm there. I once again make sure that everything in that collection is California compliant. And if it's not, I let you know. Um, Also with ammunition, there's a lot of ammunition that's not legal or safe in California. And before you sell those, give them to your grandson, it's a good idea to go through this and make sure that this stuff is safe and legal. So an audit is very similar to a gun appraisal, which we offer gun appraisals for the same way. The next one, selling guns. The appraisal is the same, where we make, model, serial number, we put everything in writing. The difference here is we come up with the value for it. And this is important, where a gentleman's got either a very valuable collection, and this could be just one gun. I've seen one gun be worth, $5,000. I've seen collections that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if there's value in the guns, you don't want to just call the police station and have them come and remove them or give them away. Maybe you need to sell those guns to help with paying for a caregiver, to help with going into a different home, or bringing in different resources, or something like that. And that could be a huge benefit to the family. So uh, how I determine if a firearm, what the value is I will look at a make, model, serial number, condition, and I go on different online auctions. I've got access, I pay for different stuff so I can go and see what they've actually sold for. And I try to find 10, 15, 20 guns that have sold for, find out the prices they've sold for, and I average it out. And okay, this gun's going to go for roughly $430. And then California Firearms or California Gun Services then pays a percentage of that to the uh, either whoever we're buying from, and the other percentage that we keep pays for the auction fees, credit card fees, all the licensing paperwork. And that is a major way where we make money to fund our company. Um, I go through and figure out if, guns are antique, modern guns, separate that. Um, so let me see. And with selling guns, another option too is consignment. If any of you are interested in either, selling or consigning, I can walk you through that. The percentages I take, they do vary a little. If it's a very high-end collection, I lower my percentage, so more money goes to the family. If they're very low-end guns, my percentage goes up. Usually the percentages on the high end, it's 60% to the customer and 40% to me. If I buy a gun that's $100, I make 40, they get 60. If a firearm collection's worth, tens of thousands, those percentages, are usually around the 25%. And I'm happy to talk more about that if you're interested in selling or consigning collections. So to move on, this is just some of the benefits and the resources we provide and the benefits for using us that we can hopefully bring to either you personally or your your clients or the people you're taking care of. This is the last page. I'll be taking questions here in a second. This is my contact information. Our website, you can go on and really learn who we are and what we do. The phone number there and my email address. So I really appreciate everybody's time. I hope this is helpful, and I really hope that if this just helps one person out there, it's worth my time. So I thank you guys for listening.
Thank you
Were there?
so. Oh,
Oh, go ahead,
I was going
Lauren.
to just say thank you so much, Jeff, for discussing
Yeah.
such a valuable topic and providing such useful information. So now for our audience, if you have any questions for Jeff, please type them into the chat box. But while we do have a couple questions that came in for you. So first, someone was wondering, what do you charge for your services? And is your company funded by the government or another entity?
Great question. So uh, to have an FFL, we have to be a for-profit business. You cannot be a nonprofit FFL. That is a ATF requirement. We like I just kind of stated at the end there, we do make money off of selling guns collections, and we only do online auctions. Those guns that are sold online get shipped only to another FFL. By and large, it's out of state, and then that gun owner or that collector then can sell to somebody else following that state law. So um, that is a way we make money. If we ship guns for people, let's say that your son that you want your guns to go to, lives in Florida, and how do you get those guns from here to there? We charge $90 per gun to pick it up, process it. We log it in with the ATF. We need to find a dealer basically in that state, and then we ship it to them. It's $90 plus shipping and handling, whatever the actual shipping cost is. So we do make some money there. A lot of the services I don't charge for a lot of stuff because I want those services available. We are not funded by the federal government, or that we don't get any kind of financial assistance from anybody. So I think that answered that question.
Yes. And
Okay.
then are there FFLs in all 50 states?
Yes. So any gun shop, uh, certain gun collectors, anybody who is in the business of transferring, buying, selling firearms has to have an FFL, and they get that from the ATF. And yes, it's the ATF is the federal, and they're in all 50 states, and I believe even in like Puerto Rico and I forget another one, but yes, and they're fairly easy to search and find.
Okay,
So,
perfect. Thank you. And then another person asked, can you share a couple stories when a person with dementia did not want his or her guns removed from the home, and what intervention you used to remove or safeguard the weapons?
yeah, I think I touched base on that a little bit. I'm thinking of one gentleman who was adamant he did not want to give up his guns, and uh, he was he was at a point where he was one day, one minute he'd be fine and he could talk and he was clear headed, and then he would have these episodes and he was more on the angry side. and the family called and asked me for help. Um, and I could have a conversation with him one day and he goes, yeah, it makes sense. I should do this. But then he just was not willing to give it up. In that instance, the first thing I did is when the wife took him out for a doctor's appointment, I met the son at the home. We went in and removed all the ammunition and just cleaned every bullet out of the house. And so it's that first layer of just being able to protect him. Um, and we bought a lockbox and put the gun in there. And then when he came home from the doctor's appointment, it's like, no, your gun is in here and it's in the garage. But the son had it, and we brought the son in to try to help talk to the dad. And at that point, when we were talking to him, he has understood and goes, yes, I understand. You're right. And that one went well. I've had other ones where the wife basically gave me authority and said, you just need to come and get it. And same thing, was at a time where the husband, left for an appointment. I met another person there, and I used the wife's authority and she signed for the guns, and we removed them that way. And in that one, I think the gentleman got pretty upset. And this is where it's so touchy. And so when the wife comes home, I know she was nervous. I don't know what happened behind closed doors, but I know hearing that he had gotten pretty upset. So, um, and then there's been other times where, it's my last resort and last option, but is to call the police if it's something that's life threatening. They make a threat, they make a suicidal threat. There may be a time where it's important to call the police right then. The the having several talks, doing these steps of let's just lock it up, let's just unload it. If they're unwilling to do any of that, that's I try to then start reaching out and saying, is there a son, a daughter? Is there a best friend? Um, if he's still got his best friend, Bob, or whatever, I'll call Bob and say, Bob, this is what's going on. You really need to help. Jim's not willing. His wife's scared. Are you willing to go over there? Do you have his ear? Will he listen to you? So we try to reach out and find that community. If there is nobody and it gets touchy, but uh, you could, um, it's every situation's different. And but that's one of the toughest parts of this is when, somebody doesn't want to give their guns up. So some of those tactics I use about talking to them, why, what is it about this gun, and sitting down and talking to somebody, um, that may open the door. Um, so each situation is different, but that's probably one of the toughest things I come across when somebody doesn't want to get rid of their guns. I hope that answered the question.
Somebody suggested, saying maybe, oh, we need to get your guns professionally cleaned as an opportunity to get them out of the house. Is that something that's feasible?
Um, if they were to go for that, if hey, there's a cleaning service or something. I mean, if someone was uh, willing to do that, but in order for me to legally take possession of those guns, if it was me coming in, my license says when I take possession, I've got to do what's called an acquisition, and I need a signature and a driver's license for of who is releasing it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it could be that, like I said, if it's a son or daughter or a family member, neighbor, and hey, let's just get the guns out of the house right now. Let's get them next door. Let's get them to our house, and then I could go and work on the legalities of how I do the legal acquisition once they've been removed from the home and who I do it to. Uh, like I said, several times I've done where we've removed the person from the house when they've gotten a doctor's appointment, and then somebody that legally can authorize me to get them meets me there. Um, and then we come in and remove the guns then. Sometimes I think I remember one time where once we did that, and I don't think the gentleman ever went back and looked. And I talked to the son later, and he's like, I don't even think he knows they're gone yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we got him out of the house, and it was a non-issue. That's best case scenario.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. And then our last question, What advice can you give to case managers or professionals that are supporting someone with memory loss living alone with a gun?
Um,
So just to clarify, they're going into the house,
mhm.
someone's living alone, they have memory issues, and they have a gun.
um, that's a dangerous situation. It's a dangerous situation for the caregiver. Uh, on several levels, accidental shooting. They could be in a state of paranoia. They're scared. You're coming in just on a normal day. They think you're there to harm them. That's a very dangerous situation. Once again, I think we would try to reach out to family members first. If there is no family, then who has power of attorney? Does somebody? Is there a fiduciary involved? That's do we then start to say, hey, we do need to find someone that can get medical or legal power of attorney over this person. I can legally take a gun from someone with power of attorney. Um, and so if you know that, I think that's the next thing is who has the authority to get rid of it. The caregiver does not. Um, uh, so yeah, I think that's a conversation to find out who has that legal authority, and then put them in contact with me, and then we'll figure out a time that we get that out of there. And if you feel that your life's, you know, if you if you're in danger, protect yourselves, and back out of there. Call for help, call your case manager, that kind of thing.
Great. And I was
So
just going to add on to that, it's important, like you said, just assess the situation, ask them to put the gun away if they're willing. If they're not, or you feel unsafe, put your safety first and leave immediately. Let your employer know what's going on. And if you fear for their safety, contact the local law enforcement right away. Their safety is important, just like yours is.
yeah,
So
and if you do call 911, let them know that the state of your client, and that they do have a gun. That is very important. And law enforcement nowadays, they're doing much better training on how to deal with mental disorders and people in mental distress. But that is their job. That is not your job as a caregiver. Um,
perfect. Okay, great. So that brings us to the conclusion of our webinar. Thank you so much to our presenter, Jeff, and thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us. If you don't mind just switching it to the next slide, which has Oh, it's not there. The Alzheimer's OC. I'll send the slides out to everybody at the end of the webinar. So you'll have the information for Alz OC helpline if you need that as well. A quick note on our upcoming webinars. We will be hosting our continuing education webinar on Tuesday, February 13th at 11:30 on the topic of activities that enhance engagement in dementia care. And we will also be offering a special general education webinar on Wednesday, February 21st at 11 a.m. on the topic of navigating assisted living and dementia care for your loved ones.